So a massive matchup of the Rugby Championship is just around the corner. The Springboks at home taking on the All Blacks. It's going to be an epic game, first of two, and in this one we're going to be trying our best to predict what Scott Robertson is going to be having as his starting XV, as well as the reserves for this upcoming contest. Now, of course, there's been plenty of talk about the All Blacks during the week, certain coaches going their separate ways. Tim, does that weigh a little bit on the mind of either the players or the coaching staff heading into this game up against a side like South Africa?
It could. And to be fair, now that I look at my lineup here, it actually could have an impact. I wasn't intentionally doing this, but maybe the reason why Lee McDonald's gone out the door, maybe Scott Robinson's put his words in there and be like, we're gonna go in this direction. So, I have something here which could surprise a lot of people, but it goes in the lines of what this whole kind of dilemma we have at the moment with Liam McDonald and Gus Razor.
And it will be interesting to see, like you said, the changes that we see in this game compared to what we have seen throughout the games up against Argentina. Of course, New Zealand finding a lot of success in their second matchup. Not so much in the first, but we have to wait and see how they go here. But starting with your front row, who have you selected that you think Scott Robertson will go with in this match?
So yeah, I've made the big call, but I think the one that most people want in this position, I've gone with Tamati Williams to start at the number 1. Then I've gone with Cody Taylor number 2, and to finish it off, Tyrell Lomax at the number 3. I just think this is probably the best front row I believe the All Blacks can go with now, of course, Ethan de Groot not available for these 2 games in South Africa due to a neck injury. So I think Tamati is probably the best option in line to start the number 1 position, and I think he deserves it, going off what he did in that second test against the Pumas. So he deserves to be the number 1. I think Cody Taylor deserves to be in there. I think he put a solid performance, I think, throughout that second test. And yeah, just his lineup actually, I think, was pretty good. So I don't think there's any changing that needs to be done in that position. And I think, Tyrell Lomax, you're not getting rid of him. I think he's like the sure thing, I think, in terms of that front row. So, yeah, he definitely stays it.
And Tamati Williams has been one of those players that people have been begging to see him get some minutes because Ethan de Groot, he has been starting off a Tuangafasi coming off the bench, and that has left the Man Mountain out of the side, which I think we got to see exactly why people wanted to see him in that second matchup against Argentina. Those scrums were dominant. And,
yes.
I mean, yes, we've seen dominant scrums for the All Blacks before, but he was just having a field day with the Argentine front row, which is exactly why I think they will select him as that number 1. Number 2, I have also gone with Cody Taylor. And number 3, I have also got Tyrell Lomax. Now, with the fact that we have seen Scott Robertson, I guess, take hold of this team a little bit more now, is there a chance we see a third Crusader in that front row? Fletcher Null moves into the starting lineup. It would certainly annoy a lot of people, but I just don't see them doing that for this match.
You can't. I think Oxenchae would have the better of him any day of the week. I would have more confidence in Tyrell Lomax against Oxenchae than Fletcher Newell, unfortunately. So for the All Blacks to win kind of the set pieces, which is a key thing in this game, you got to go with Tyrell Lomax there.
And in that case, you would get to see Ginger versus Ginger off the bench. Fletcher Newell versus Stephen Kitsoff. That is the type of battle that people would pay money to be able to witness. But now moving on to the locking duo. Number 4 for myself, I have gone with Scott Barrett. Now, there is still a little bit of a question mark about whether or not he will be fit for the first game. But if he's not, that is where I would have Tupavai. But if Barrett is available, it's a bit of a risk seeing as he wasn't in his best form before his injury. But I still feel like with that physicality, they want to have him in the number 4 jersey. Number 5, someone who I think has been sensational since getting the chance for the All Blacks, Sam Derry. Up against Fiji off the bench, he was strong. You're pumping your fist, of course, because he's a Blues boy, but he's really stepped up to the occasion. Even in that first game up against Argentina when the All Blacks were defeated, he was one of the standout forwards, and it's a very good start to what could be a very long future for the All Blacks if Sam Derry can continue doing what he's doing.
I agree. I think he's had an excellent start towards his kind of All Blacks career, and hopefully he can kind of continue that. I mean, what better time to do it, really, in South Africa, really, kind of to test yourself, put yourself underneath that pressure of the box in South Africa, and that's the reason why I have gone with him along with Scott Barrett in there, for the exact same reasons. I think Scott Barrett, I think he will be available in time. I think if you have him available, you've got to go with him. He is the sure thing, and again, he'll take that captaincy badge, of course, back from Sevilla, and just I'm looking forward to it because I think on his day he can be a really good player for the All Blacks. But I do agree, in the previous games that we saw of him, he wasn't his absolute best. So hopefully, he kind of goes straight into this game, back into the form that we know he can kind of go into.
I've got a question for you, Tim. Scott Barrett returns into the side. does he get that captaincy straight back? Do you give it
Oh,
to him,
yeah.
or do you give Ardie Savia the captaincy?
No. But this is the thing. They've made the decision. They've made the decision.
They have, but do you think Scott Barrett actually wants the captaincy? I've seen nothing that's told me that guy actually wants to be captain for the All Blacks. It seems like the pressure might get to him a little bit, and maybe that's why he's not performing in the international stage, because he's got the weight of the captaincy, the weight of the country on the shoulders. Ardie Savia, he's like, another day at the office. Whoopsies, we lost Argentina, but we're ready to go for the next one. But
I think Scott Barrett, you got to give it to him. I think at the end of the day, it's that trust, but also just like the experience of him and Razor working as a combination under the Crusaders. That's the thing that just elevates it for me. For the reason, I mean, that's the reason why I think most people thought that Scott Barrett was the right choice, really. But again, for Ardie Savia there, I guess the question we're always begging if that's the right decision or not. But for now, Scott Barrett's the captain.
Scott Barrett talks so really, I've forgotten what he sounds like.
Yeah. Okay.
And is that the voice you want when you're out on the field? Like, I'm sure he's a very good bloke out there on the field and probably can fire up a team, but I just don't see him talking enough. That's the little bit of the problem, I think, for the All Blacks. Seems like maybe cohesion and a little bit of chemistry is lacking a bit.
The argument that's the same with Richie. When Richie was captain, he wasn't like the most talkative person in the world, but he was more of a silent leader. Like he led by example. That's what he was known for. So Scott Barrett will do the exact same thing. Like whereas with Ardie Savia, I don't think he's more of a lead by example. I think he's more talkative in the way he kind of goes about it. He's leading his team on. So there's two different ways of kind of how to lead a team, and I think Scott Barrett does it more similarly to what we saw with Richie than with Ardie Savia. But by the way, there's nothing wrong with which way you go from a leadership standpoint. I just think that, Scott Barrett, he deserves it. He's been captain for a while for the Crusaders. He understands that kind of role, and I'm excited to see him kind of play. And again, when you're going against the All Blacks, you need that type of experience, especially in the locks. If you're going against the likes of Eben Smith and RJ Snyman, who's probably the likely option, then man, you need a player like him in there.
Yeah, bring that physicality. And Tupavai, I feel like he will still be a very strong option off the bench, maybe in this game. Later on in the contest.
Very solid. I feel bad for him, actually, because I would actually honestly go with Tupavai and Sam Derry, but it's just the same kind of situation we were dealt with in the past with, kind of Sam Cane, where there may be better players in this position, but at the end of the day, he's the captain. You gotta go with your guys. So Scott Barrett is in that place. He's the guy.
Alrighty, so moving on to the loose forward trio now. Number 6, 7, and 8. These positions at the start of the Rugby Championship, they were a little bit more debated, as well as throughout the July internationals. They seem to have been steered in a direction where it's almost confirmed who they're going to go with in each of those spots now. So for yourself, who have you gone with in that loose forward trio?
Yeah, it's number 6. This is where I've gone with Ethan Blackadder to start the number 6 jersey. Then I've gone with Dalton Papali'i at the number 7, and then Ardie Savia at the number 8. I just think it's one of those where I was actually pondering over a lot if I was to switch this kind of loose forward trio, but the more I thought about it, just like there's nothing wrong with it. Like there's nothing really wrong that I can think of like that needs changing. Like I think even Blackadder, and this may be a bold statement here, but I think he's been the best loose forward out of the trio so far from the 2 games we saw. I think he's been outstanding for the All Blacks, and I really do mean that, because for a time I actually wasn't really the biggest Ethan Blackadder fan. I just think he wasn't adding as much in a game that I wanted him to. But man, in those 2 games he played, he was just from a tackling standpoint, I think he got plus 20 tackles in both games. So you want that in number 6, and from a carrying standpoint, he was pretty good as well. So he's definitely number 6 right now, and I think that's what Razor sees now. Is like I think he's now suddenly getting that 6 jersey. It's kind of taken away from Semi Finale, unfortunately. So I think that's where it's going to be his now for the taking, kind of lose, really. And then with the 7, this is the one where I think you have a bit of debate about, because there is now the option of Sam Cane, who I thought was pretty good off the bench from last week. And you do have Luke Jacobson there. And if you want to, because I know it's something which you would probably consider to do, is move Ethan Blackadder to the 7 and then let me play Finn out the number 6. But I think probably for what I believe he's the best jackler of the ball out of all the 7s that we have available. And in the 2 games that actually happened in Argentina, he won 2 turnovers as well. So he's definitely known to kind of win those key turnovers and help the All Blacks sort of progress with the field. And when you're playing against the Springboks, that is so crucial. You need to win the ball in the breakdown, because there are going to be opportunities where the Boks, they give you that, but you need to take that kind of chance. So Papali'i is there for the exact reason of that, because I already have my tackling machine with Blackadder. I don't need someone like Sam Cane there. I want Papali there to, use his mobility, move the field. Yeah, he's just an awesome player, man. So he's number 7. And then, I mean, there's nothing more I can say about Artis Villa because he's the best player in the world for what it is right now. So he is the number 8 for a sure thing. And yeah, in that jersey, he's just been outstanding for the All Blacks. Hopefully, it can kind of continue for them. I mean, from a bulk point of view, I hope not. But man, he is a heck of a player to watch, man. So you just got to appreciate his brilliance.
Well, just like yourself, Tim, I have got the exact same trio. Numbers 3-0. 3-0. That's a new one. Why is it called a trio rather than a 3-0? 3-0 is 3 in the word.
I don't know. Maybe you should tell World Rugby that. Maybe you should change that kind of terminology. Maybe.
I'm just thinking duo. You could say 2-0, but no. I feel like you just don't need to.
That would work, man.
No, the words are there for a reason. We're not going to rewrite the dictionary over it. But number 6, I am going to go with Ethan Blackadder as who I think they will go with. Number 7, Dalton Papali'i, and then number 8, Ardie Savia. Now, those 3, I feel like from that first game up against Argentina, people were asking to see a bit more physicality. Second game up against Argentina, I think they showed it at times, but this is going to be maybe an unpopular opinion. I think that they still didn't really show as much physicality as people wanted to see. It's just the fact that the All Blacks were so dominant that they didn't have to use it in the same way that they may have had to if it was a close fixture. I think up against... It was a lot of running for the All Blacks throughout that game up against Los Pumas, but I think up against South Africa, if New Zealand cannot get the physicality in their loose forward trio, that's somewhere that they could lose this game. And, it's been asked of them a lot, get in there, get in the breakdowns and cause a bit of disruption, a bit of mongrel, which is where Sam Cane could come into it a little bit for this AB's team. But Ethan Blackadder, I think he's stepping in the right direction. Papali, like you mentioned, he's been doing very well with his tackles as well as getting the occasional turnover. It's just that question of will they be able to do that up against a side like South Africa who have Peter Steph-Toy as an option in that loose forward trio. But now we move on to the 9-10 combination. Now, of course, I want to reiterate, this is what we believe that Razor will be going with. The reason I had to say that is because number 9, I've gone TJ Perenara. Now, it's not what I think 95, if not 99% of people want to see in that number 9 jersey. Don't get me wrong. TJ, he's had some good moments. He's a fantastic player, but the current combo, I believe, moving forward is Cortez Ratama 9, Damian McKenzie number 10. It just makes sense. They're both from the Chiefs. They've had time together building up that combination. Cortez Ratama's running game is very impressive. Maybe they're saying TJ's got an advantage in the kicking, which is why they might opt for him in this game. Definitely up against a side like South Africa who do enjoy an up and under. But yeah, number 9, I do think they'll select TJ Perenara. And then number 10, this is where I believe they will select Damian McKenzie. He's going to be tested in this game up against the South Africans, going head-to-head with either Sasha Feinberg, Ngume Zulu, or Andre Pollard. Either way, going to have his hands full. But I think that the key to success for the All Blacks is a functioning backline, and that 9-10 combination, I believe, needs to be spot on for that to be a reality.
Yeah, no, I like that. The only reason why I was laughing with that because I was kind of thinking of Noah Holtman there. what if he gets included in this 9?
Ooh, you think another Crusader
off the bench? You just don't know. You just don't know with Razor, but. I think you are right. I think TJ Perenara is probably the most likely option that I think Razor will go with. But I actually have gone with Cortez Ratama at the start here. And I'm saying this from, I think, what Razor will go with. Not what I believe, but what Razor will go with. Because I think when you're thinking of more from a skill standpoint, I think Cortez Ratama is the guy to look at because he injects so much more pace than Perenara when it comes towards those passing, but also just his running meters. He just goes for it, man. And he has that chemistry ready with McKenzie off the Chiefs. And I think that's something which Robinson may look at in terms of that 9-10 combination because at the end of the day, you want to outpace the defense of the box. And I think what better to have than Ratama, but then also McKenzie there. It just makes it so nice. So I think that's something which Razor could look into. But like I said, I would not be surprised at all if he goes with TJ Perenara because, like I said, he is probably the best kicker they have in terms of box kicking. So they may want to kind of counteract that kind of for what the box may do in that area. So yeah, we'll see. But for now, I've gone with Ratama and McKenzie as a 9-10 combination.
Alrighty, so a nice little Chiefs combo for yourself. We move on to the centres. The reason I said about the Chiefs is there's a certain Chiefs player named Anton Leonard-Brown that people have said is in sensational form that they'd love to see in either 12 or 13. Oh, I've heard it a few, but the bloke's been playing well. Billy Proctor, another name that has been thrown around of an informed player. The All Blacks, they have persisted with Geordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane. So the question is, have you gone with that same combination of Barrett and Ioane here? I feel like off that last game up against Argentina, you could make the argument that they're starting to find their rhythm a little bit more. But once again, Argentina, it just seemed like they didn't show up for that game. So is that the combo you've gone with?
So, okay, I want to explain myself here. I actually originally had Geordie Barrett and Billy Proctor in here. And I actually wanted to do that because on the lines of what I'm going for in terms of like skill base, kind of bringing the game to South Africa, really, from what New Zealand rugby is all about in terms of just exciting rugby, you kind of just injecting pace, kind of just passing the ball around. Like, I think that combination of Geordie Barrett and Billy Proctor would be amazing to watch. So that's why I had it in the first place. But the more I thought about it, and just, we have to think this is Razor's team, by the way, guys. So I just have to take that into account. And unfortunately, just for people who may not like it, but I just think that the best combination that the All Blacks do have is Geordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane. And I think both of them were great. I think in that second test, I think just there was nothing wrong with it actually in the second test. I think it works out pretty well for them. So I just don't think they can change that. But I will say the form of Anton Brown, though, is someone that you have to consider because he's definitely the better player comparing to Billy Proctor, because unfortunately Billy Proctor just hasn't had enough minutes, I'd say, throughout the previous games he's had. So it's really more, I'd say, Anton Brown, who maybe is more likely to get the opportunity. But I think for now, just stick with the combination of Geordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane there.
So if he gets the opportunity, playing him 12 or 13?
If I'm putting Billy Proctor, he's going as my number 13. I want Geordie Barrett at the 12, Billy Proctor at the 13. But if I'm going like for what I've gone with Geordie Barrett and Rieko at the 13. But if Anton Brown was to get in, then man, that would be an intriguing one. Like, because I think Geordie Barrett actually played pretty well in that second game. So it's hard to say, like, because in the first game, I mean, I said that before. That was probably the game that for the first time ever, I was like, I had a bit of doubt about Geordie Barrett. But again, it's one game, so like you can't be over dramatic about like one game. But at the same time, he backed it up in the second game. He was brilliant in that one. So I think going into this one, I think Razor will give him the opportunity once again. So it's harsh for Anton Brown, but man, just it's Geordie Barrett and Rieko, man. It's Geordie Barrett and Rieko.
And that is the combination that I have also gone with. Geordie Barrett, number 12. Rieko Ioane, number 13. I'm a little bit the same as yourself. I feel like out of Geordie Barrett or Rieko, Geordie currently is in the better form, which is what makes it very tricky because, in the ideal world, you could put Anton Lienert-Brown as your 12, but then you've still got, no offense to him, but an out-of-form Rieko Ioane on the outside. So will that change much? Probably not. So it makes it very difficult. The combination of Geordie Barrett and Anton Lienert-Brown, you wonder is that something that they would consider, but it just doesn't have that right dynamic, I don't think, for this All Black side and the way that they want to play. So, Geordie Barrett, Rieko does seem like the most likely.
What I will ask you, though, is that what do you think is the best combination? So not for what we've gone with here with Geordie Barrett and Rieko, but do you think that's the best combination to go against the likes of Damien Delende and Jesse Krill, like to kind of counteract them? Like, because you can make an argument like, yes, straight off the back, like, yes, because there are two different types of players, really, to like Damien Delende and Jesse Krill when you're kind of thinking about what they add to the side. But you could maybe go for a player that's more, I don't know, similar to them, maybe with, I don't know, Billy Proctor. That I think Billy Proctor is a very similar player to Jesse Krill. That's kind of the way I see both of them kind of in a way. And then you can make the argument like, there's not really a similar player to Damien Delende, I think. So just what would you say in that front?
See, I would say after last week, it's very hard to take them both out. But if we were looking at this game, let's say 2 or 3 weeks ago or straight after Super Rugby, my combination would have been Anton Lienert-Brown 12, Billy Proctor 13. But you've also got to remember that these two that they've got here normally have very good defensive stats. And a side like South Africa are going to throw absolutely everything at you. So the last thing you want to be doing is making 2 big changes now and not having that cohesion of a backline. So if they had already given Anton Lienert-Brown and Proctor a few more minutes together, I would say go with that combo because on attack, they are phenomenal. Defensively, I know that Lienert-Brown was criticised for that first game up against Argentina, but one benefit was he was still there, which was something that we couldn't say about some of the other players. So, I would say for now it's Rico and Barrett, but you know, if they had pulled the trigger earlier, it could have been Leonard Brown and Proctor, and they could have been doing very well at this same stage of the Rugby Championship. But we move on to the back three now. We saw some changes last week compared to the first contest. We saw the return of Will Jordan now back into the starting lineup for the ABs. He keeps his spot for me in this one. But number 11, I believe they will select Mark Talia. Number 14, I have ended up going with Will Jordan, and number 15, Beauden Barrett. Now, if it was up to me, I would have Clark as my number 11. But there's just something that tells me that the defender's beaten stat that Mark Talia just keeps on doing extremely well.
It's just crazy. Like
might be what gives him that little bit of an edge. But then at the same time, marking up with Chisel and Colby, more than likely, is Talia defensively sound enough to handle that challenge?
Yeah, compared to Caleb Clark, like Clark's the better defender than Talia, but you're right that Talia is he's someone that the Springbok defense will be definitely more worried about, I'd say, from a defensive point of view, because he can just break through defense just like that. So I'd definitely be worried. And it's funny because I was even looking at the stat earlier today, just about all the stats of like tackling, clean breaks, all of that. But I knew straight away when it came to defender speed, I was like, okay, well, this should be Martellet, and boom, there you go, he's right there at the top. So that's what he does. So it's not a bad pick at all, and it's probably the most likely pick I think Razor may go with as well.
Righty, so now for yourself, have you got Mark Talia as your number 11, or have you got Clark?
Yeah. So I have both of them. I have Caleb Clark and Mark Talia, and this is where I've gone with a big change. I've gone with Will Jordan at the 15, and I think Razor will do this. And I think, by the way, this is what I was talking about very early on in the video. This is where the big decision had to be made in terms of the disagreement of coaches. And I think Razor has now put his blueprint. He's going to stick his blueprints into the side, the Crusaders' blueprints, and he's going to put Will Jordan in the 15 jersey. I think this is the time where he's been saving it for a perfect game, and this is like the time he sees it, and he's going to do it. He's going to put Will Jordan in the 15, Caleb Clark number 11, Martellet at the 14, and that will just be a very, very frightening back three that the Springboks will have to deal with. And I am actually scared thinking about that. Like, I'm more scared about that back three than a Beauden Barrett in there. That's kind of I know, not any disregard of the Beauden Barrett, by the way. I'm just, in terms of like how dangerous these players can be in terms of the positions I put them in. Oh my gosh, I don't want it to happen. I don't want it to happen. But if Razor does that, and I don't know, maybe we could actually see it because of the disagreements within the media, then man, that would just that would change the embed of the. I think that would actually sway more in the All Blacks' favor, I think, in terms of winning the game. That's the way I see it. But I don't know if Razor will do it or not. I think this is his chance to do it because of I think he'll do it. I just think he'll do it. I think it's just the perfect opportunity. So that's the reason why I've gone with it as well.
So you've decided to have Beauden Barrett back to that impact player like he was up against the English. It is certainly a bold change if they were to do so. But Mark Talia, like we've mentioned many times, he has been playing 14 throughout Super Rugby Pacific, yet they do persist with him at 11 in the All Blacks. Yeah, I'm very curious to know whether or not they're willing to change Will Jordan and give him that 15 jersey rather than being out on the wing. Because I agree with you in certain extents with the fact that Will Jordan just doesn't seem to touch the ball enough when he's out on the wing. For a player of his caliber, he needs to get his hands on the pill as much as physically possible.
But I will make a counter to my point that I made earlier. He has got 33 tries in 33 games. So he's not doing something wrong, that's for sure. But I'm just saying.
And in fact, the last time he started at fullback, he did not score a try, Tim.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. It's written on the wall right there. But no, I think he has to just be there. I think Razor will think of that because it's the box. He wants to kind of put something in it. Put some into this game that the box aren't thinking about, and I think that's the big play.
So now that will mean more than likely Beauden Barrett will find himself off your bench. Do you have a 5-3 split or a 6-2 split here up against the Springboks?
I was considering a 6-2, but just the more I think about it, I just think the All Blacks are more likely, and I think Razor's more likely to go with a 5-3 just to kind of cover the back line.
Because I think, if I remember rightly, that warm-up game of the Rugby World Cup, the All Blacks did go with the 6-2. Springboks went with the 7-1,
That was the first one that everyone was 7-1. So that was such like the funny thing about it. Like the All Blacks thought they were going to match them, but then no, the Springboks was like, no, we're going to put one better. We're going to go with 7-1. And everyone was like, what? And then we know how that game turned out, and that's it's a nice tick in the box there for the green. But no, it's one of those where I think for this one, I think 5-3 just makes more sense for the All Blacks.
So front row replacements, who have you got as your 16, 17, 18?
So I've made some big changes here. This is where I have gone with Sophomore to come off the bench as the replacement hooker. I just think he is the best hooker still that they have coming off the bench. I mean, George Bell, I mean, I wouldn't go with him here just because, I mean, this is probably the most biggest pressure situation you can be in. And his lineout success and the earlier games I saw of him, it wasn't good enough to kind of warrant him a selection, I believe, in this opening test. And you want to have someone who's just reliable for most lineouts. And Sophomore did that coming off the bench for the All Blacks as well as for the Hurricanes without the Super preseason. So he's there. And then for the replacement props, this is where I have gone with Offatunga Fassi in the number 17 jersey. I just think he's someone where I don't think I would have gone with him, actually, if even the group was available. But because of the neck injury, I just think he's the best in line, really, kind of fill that void there. So that's the reason why I've gone with him. And then for the number 18, this is actually where I've gone with Paseo Tosi. I've gone with Tosi there at the number 18 jersey. And I want to see it happen. I mean, I think out of all the selection here that I've gone with, I want to make sure I'm choosing Razor players, but I think this is probably the one where I've gone with probably the player I want to see here. I want to go with Tosi there. And I'm hoping Razor thinks the same thing, but I just think Tosi's a great player to have off the bench, and he can maybe kind of impact the game, and particularly in the scrums, you need that kind of player. So that's the reason why I also thought of him.
And yeah, Null hasn't quite found his stride, has he, in terms of that number 18 jersey, and that could be because he is known more as that scrummager, and maybe, there's been moments that the scrum has been strong with him in it, but at the same time, Pasilio Tosi, I mean, we remember that run that he had up against the Fijians, having a dynamic ball runner in that front row could be massive for them as well, and Asafa Moore, his teammate, as the number 16, would also be very handy. So that is who I've gone with. I've gone with Asafa Moore as the number 16. Number 17, I have got Offatunga Fassi, and then number 18, Fletcher Null. I decided that Razor would go with Null there. I would in terms of my lineup, but
fair enough,
as Razor, I feel like he'll find a way to squeeze a couple more Saders in there, definitely with the new situation that we find ourselves in. So Fletcher Null as my number 18. But number 19, this is where I have got a Chiefs player, and that is Tupavai. Now, of course, if Scott Barrett is not able to play due to an injury, Tupavai would move into my starting lineup as the 4, and I would have Josh Lord as the number 19. So either way, I've got a Chiefs lock replacement coming off the bench. In this game, number 20, another Chiefs player, Sam Cane. I do think that they will bring him off the bench in this game. Now, they have got some great options, mainly from the Chiefs, in fact. You've got Wallace Satiti. You've also got the other option of Luke Jacobson or Summer Penny-Fee now, if you want to talk about him as well. It's just all Chiefs now that I started reading it off. But Sam Cane, I feel like that experience, that little bit of scrappiness in a later stage of a game might actually be quite handy. Definitely if the loose forward trio starting this match aren't able to match that physicality of the Springboks, I feel like someone like a Sam Cane might go out there and he'll want to right his wrongs. At the end of the day, people are still giving him stick about that Rugby World Cup final, getting that red card. But the bloke, other than that, still had a relatively solid tournament. So I'd like to see him have a good game here up against the Springboks, just to kind of mitigate the amount of naysayers. But either way, like, people are still going to not like him.
Yeah, people
unfortunately, like, one game isn't going to change their opinion on him, even though one game originally did, which was that Rugby World Cup final.
Yeah. Well, I have gone the exact same two as you here. I have also gone to Babai and Sam Cane as expected here. It is kind of strange that we've kind of not gotten, there's all the Chiefs players off the bench available there. But I feel bad for Wallace Atiti, though, because he's a player just for his case, because he's number 8. You're just not going to get as many minutes in this position because you just have probably the World Player of the Year there with Otis Sevilla. So it's just hard to kind of get in any minutes. But again, I do believe he's a player that we could see maybe against Australia. It just depends on how the results go, I'd say, against the South African in the 2 games in South Africa. But you never know. I
think the November internationals might be the best chance for Wallace Satiti, just because, like, I'd love to see him up against the Australians, but I think it heavily depends on how that first match goes for the All Blacks. If they somehow were to lose that first game, then I don't see them making many changes heading into that second. Although we should mention, if South Africa win both of these games, unless something crazy happens, they have pretty much got the Rugby Championship. You'd have to argue. I mean, it would be very hard for anyone.
They have to play away in Argentina first. So If it was at home, then I'd be like, okay, yes, right off the back, then I'd be like, but you never know. Argentina, like at home, they do pretty well there. So you can't count them out. You can't count them out.
But yeah, I think Argentina, they are a strange side, aren't they? And I mean that in the nicest way possible. It seems to be the trend is they really, really step up when they play the All Blacks. But then anytime they play South Africa, they seem to just forget that they were doing so well up against the ABs and they go back to their old ways. And I think that's something that a lot of Argentinian supporters have been asking for an extremely long time is a little bit of consistency. So hopefully they can find that as they play up against the Australians. I actually think they'll have a really good shot up against the Wallabies in those two contests. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how the other games go. Moving on to the back replacements. For yourself, number 21, you have got Cortez Ratama in your starting side, which would mean unless he's duplicated, he will not be off your bench. So who have you got as that number 21?
Well, this is where I've gone with Tito Perenara. I just think you got to have experience off the bench, and I think he's going to be included somehow. Again, like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts in that position at the number 9, but I just think I wouldn't mind Tito Perenara coming off the bench because you want to kind of capitalize on kind of like the end of the last 20 minutes or so, and I think Perenara is kind of a specialist for that. So that's the reason why I'm selecting them there. Of course, this is where I've gone with Budden Barrett, the number 22 spot. He was never going to get out of this side without a doubt. So he's a part of the matchday squad. And yeah, they had to cover, of course, the 10 and 15. And then to finish it off, this is where I've gone with Anton Brown. I just think he's the sure thing to kind of cover that 12 and 13. If need be, you can put Raker to the 11 or 14. Yeah. There's a lot of versatility in that back line. So that's the reason why I've gone with him there.
For myself, I've got Cortez Ratama as my number 21. Number 22, this is where I have got Anton Lienert-Brown. Like you said, he has to be somewhere. The way that he has been playing, it would just seem unfair if he didn't get some sort of minutes throughout this South African match. And if he doesn't play in this first one, I would start him in the second. I feel like you can't leave him completely out of a side twice in a row. He's just he's playing his best rugby, and while he's doing that, surely you've got to give him those minutes under his belt. Number 23, someone who didn't play their best rugby in their last outing, but I've decided to give him a crack because this is what we think Scott Robertson will be going with. This is where I've got Sevu Reece as the number 23.
Okay. I actually like it.
There's just a little bit of a chance that maybe if they've got Mark Talia in the starting side as the 11, like I think that they may, then Sevu Reece to come into that 11 jersey near the end of the game. He doesn't offer you a lot of versatility. He can play either wing, which I mean is still slightly more versatile.
I like the pick.
Yeah, it's just a little sneaky inkling, I guess you'd say, that I feel like they might.
You could start, like, generally, like for the side I'm thinking of, like, honestly, I would even consider putting Sevu Reece ahead of Marcellea because he's a better defensive player on that end, and you need to win key turnovers in the breakdown. But I guess, like, for the danger factor, that X factor, that's the reason why I went with Marcellea there. But I do like the pick of Sevu Reece.
It could be a possibility. Maybe Reece for my side goes to 11 to Leo off the bench later on in the game, but it'd be a bit of a risk, I think. But then saying that, like, defensively, the last game we saw for Sevu Reece, that would concern me going head-to-head with Chisel and Colby. If he doesn't have his defence worked out, but then Talia's defence doesn't exactly enthrall me, I will say. Like, I hope it gets better.
He does. He just scores 2 tries.
He also knows how to concede 2 tries in the games that he plays. So we'll see how the ratio's going by the end of the game.
It all balances out, It all balances out.
But nonetheless, ladies and gents, do let us know, of course, who you think Razor will be going with in the comments down below, as well as who you would have in your All Blacks 23 to take on the South Africans. When the All Blacks are announced, we will be, of course, doing the video on the channel. Be sure to check out Rugbyitch's YouTube channel as well. His link will be in the description, as well as the pinned comments. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and we will see you all for the next one.